Game on, fan up. Box Lunch is stacked with the best gear from the worlds you live in. Gaming, anime, sports, and beyond. PlayStation hoodies, NFL collabs, retro Nintendo collectibles. Yeah, the good stuff, all in one place. And here's the cheat code. Every $10 you spend donates a meal to someone in need through Feeding America. So your next pickup actually helping someone out. Hit Box Lunch in store or online at boxlunch.com. Level up your fit, your shelf, and your impact.
Welcome to Don't Cop Out, the show that challenges everything you think you know about public safety. I'm your host, William C. Anderson. Each episode, I'll introduce you to a community safety responder who's leading the charge in creating alternatives to policing. Together, we'll debunk common myths about what keeps us safe and introduce you to people proving that true safety doesn't require a badge or a gun. Today, I'm speaking with Kat Brooks, co-founder and executive director of Anti-Police Terror Project and Justice Teams. Let's get into it. How are you doing, Kat?
I'm good, William. How you be?
I'm good. I'm really excited about this interview. I've really been looking forward to learning more about your work and everything that makes the organization that you co-founded so important. So just to get started right off the bat, can you tell me a little bit about what Anti-Police Terror Project is and why you co-founded it?
So in 2009, a young man named Oscar Grant was murdered by our public transit police on the platform. And it was New Year's Day. It was a few minutes after New Year's Day, January 1st, 2009. And what was different about Oscar's murder at that point in time, right now folks are so used to social media and stuff on the phones that wasn't really a thing yet. It was just sort of emerging. But people got it on their phones and it went organically viral. That was also the time we were at the bottom of a recession. And so, when America gets a cold, black folks get a flu. And the Oakland Police Department, which is different than our public transit police, right? But we don't make a difference. But the Oakland Police Department was the most murderous police department in Northern California. They were killing Black people because the wind changed directions, like one a month was their average. So the people exploded with Oscar's murder. And we say the resistance movement that was born in Oakland then and ended up being a protracted struggle with the state, that is the fight that kicked off the last 17 years of struggle against state violence. It's the longest sustained period of fighting against state violence in the history of this country. So anyway, we were in the streets, like weekend after weekend. We were responding to murders by OPD, but also around the country. Thousands of people in the streets. Like the joke was, you never knew if you were going to make it to work on time or not because then people was going to be shutting stuff down. And this is pre-14, 15, 16 when that was sort of popping off everywhere. And my other co-founder, Asantha Boykin, and I were standing in my kitchen and she said, direct quote, "Bruh, I feel like we're chasing dead Black bodies," right? Because great, we had all these people in the streets, but what were we funneling them into, right? The state kept killing us. We were just responding, right? And so for us, that's political masturbation, right? Because we were changing material conditions. So APTP was born to be visionary and not just reactionary. We were born with the mission to eradicate state terror in communities of color. We were born out of the rejection of the acceptance that state terror is just a part of our lives that we had to accept and all we could do was respond to it. We were born asking what is real safety for our people, how do we define it, and how do we want to implement it, and also what was the role of families in this struggle, because at that time we didn't have the massive networks we have now, like Families United for Justice, and well-meaning activists like myself would put somebody's their loved one's face on a piece of cardboard and I hit the streets, right, without any conversation. So our mission, like I said, is to eradicate state terror. We do that through policy, not reform, but people call them radical reforms and non-reforms. Family support, and for us that means developing and training impacted family members into leaders, the rightful leaders, like they should be replacing me soon. Developing alternatives, communications as an organizing strategy, and healing justice as an organizing strategy, because we believe unless we're addressing our people's trauma that is compounded by white supremacy every single day, then as the party understood, the Black Panther Party understood, if you were worried about a light bill or feeding yourself, it made it that much harder to struggle for your liberation. We believe that trauma acts the same way. So we interrupt that as a way to bring people into the movement.
I really appreciate that reference to the Panthers and that intercommunalist approach. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you would actually define safety? What does that look like? What does a healthy community look like, feel like, sound like? Can you give us a vision here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with just a basic mantra that I think people in this work say, right? Is that we know that the safest communities are not the most police communities. The safest communities are the most well-resourced communities. I'll give an example. I live in the hood. In Oakland, we call them the flats. We got the flats of the west and flats of the east. I live in the flats of the west. If I spit in any direction at any point in time of day, I'll hit a cop car, right? And yet, the flats of Oakland have the highest levels of crime, right? We can have a whole segment on what crime is and is not. But if I go 20 minutes up the hill to Piedmont or Montclair, what we just call the hills, I can't find a cop in broad daylight with a flashlight. And yet, their numbers of crime are far below ours, right? But what they do have is grocery stores without rotten food. What they do have is schools that benefit from a law that we have called Prop 13, which means you get resource based on your tax base. What they do have are clean parks. What they do have are access to doctors and healthcare centers, right? So they have all of these things. What they do have is these nice places where white folks can go to get mental health supports without being, right? Because for us, that's jail. So they have all of these resources that allow them to have healthy communities. So healthy communities, safe communities, are communities with what you need to live a life where you thrive, not survive, not make it, not scrape by, but thrive.
I was so entranced by what you were talking about there, just the aspect of thriving and being able to have these resources being such an important part of grounding that vision for the future and that better world that you're trying to build towards. So can you tell me, what does fighting police terror look like in practice? And can you get a little bit more into detail about how the police are actually making problems worse instead of solving them, maybe through the overfunding or through that kind of sucking up of resources that people actually need?
Fighting state terror for us has looked a myriad of ways. I said at the beginning of our conversation that we were born to be visionary and not just reactionary. That said, I also said that at that point in time, OPD was the Oakland Police Department. They were just killing us. They were killing us. The sheriffs were killing us. The BART police were killing us, right? And so we were responding. And something I didn't realize until a couple of years ago was that what it meant then was that we were in literal protracted struggle with the state. Literally, we were in the streets. There was tear gas. There were flashbangs, getting beaten up, getting arrested. And this went on for over 10 years, like almost 2009 to 2020, right? The end of 2020, when the whole country was like, we had been sustained in the streets fighting them up to that point in time. It also looked like engaging what we call radical reforms, right? So you were never going to see us advocating for body cameras. You were never going to see us asking to waste yet one more penny on cultural competency trainings, right? We were working on decertification laws, right? So if a cop murders, rapes, beats somebody, they can be decertified. Now, that's a whole other process, but we won the law. Racial profiling laws, the Crisis Act, where we actually got $10 million, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, $10 million of the state budget diverted to grassroots organizations to build alternatives, right? It looks like defund. We kicked off defund in Oakland in 2016 because a young woman came forward and we found out that the Oakland Police Department and several other Bay Area police departments had raped and trafficked this young woman for a really long time, and the community exploded. And me and James Birch, then our policy director, were having a protest where we scaled their flagpoles, took their flags down and put up a flag that said OPD or rapist. And I asked James, I said, what the F are we paying them for, right? It was one of those moments as an organizer and activist, I was so mad. I mean, we're always mad, but it was just like, it was, you have those moments where you're just like, even for them, this is too much, even for them. And it was one of those moments. And James Birch went away and he came back and he said, well, this is what we pay them for. And that's when we figured out that they got upwards of 50% during budgeting cycle. But by the time they were done exploiting our budgets with the overtime policy, and by the time we were done paying out all of the lawsuits, right, they got upwards of 65% of the general fund. So for folks that don't know what a general fund is, every municipality has it, right? Those are the funds that clean up your streets. Those are the funds that maintain parks. Those are the funds that pay for summer job programs, right? Which is a proven violence reduction strategy, right? Those are when you're like, why can't my city afford this? It's because the money's not in the general fund. And I guarantee you, regardless of where you are in this country, the reason why your city can't afford it is because the cops have it, right? And so that's the most concrete way I could talk about how they are making it worse. There is literally no money to do the things that we need to have in our communities to thrive, which is why we have to do it. We have to do it. And when we're talking about things like mental health crisis, right? So upwards of 50% of the folks that cops murder have a disability. Upwards of half of those folks are in the middle of a mental health crisis. If someone is not, say, someone, you and I with someone, and they're not sharing our reality, you introduce even someone that looks like they're in a cop uniform, and it goes from 0 to 60 in no time, right? And so just on the numbers alone, why are we sending badges and guns to places where we need care and compassion? ODs. You cannot arrest your way out of an overdose. So why are you sending people that are trained to deal with crisis through violence to situations that need de-escalation and calm? And then let's talk about the mental and emotional impact for Black people living in communities that are occupied by this violent patrolling force that we know at any moment could decide to kill us and will do so with impunity. So in all of the ways, the way America does policing, which is how we define public safety, makes everything worse across the board.
Coming up.
Because the reality is white supremacy has done damage. And there are some of us that are just really, really damaged. And some of those folks may not get undamaged this lifetime.
Meet Natural Cycles, the only FDA-cleared and CE-marked birth control app that's 100% natural, hormone-free, and side effect-free. Here's how it works. The app analyzes daily changes in your body temperature to find your fertile window, so you can plan or prevent pregnancy naturally. Natural Cycles is a clinically proven, non-hormonal birth control option that's 93% effective with typical use and 98% effective with perfect use. No synthetic hormones, just science. And if you're ready to start family planning, switching from preventing to planning a pregnancy is as easy as tapping a button. Plus, the Natural Cycles app makes tracking fertility easy. You can measure your temperature trends using an Oura Ring, Apple Watch, or our Bluetooth thermometer, which is free when you sign up for an annual subscription. Join over 4 million registered users who are taking control of their fertility naturally. Save 15% when you sign up with code RADIO15 at naturalcycles.com. That's Radio15 for 15% off today.
Possibility means you have a chance.
Passion opens the door to all possibilities.
When I feel like anything's possible, I feel kind of giddy.
I want to be an astronaut, an artist, an actress.
To visit another country.
All I need is a backpack and a pair of shoes, and I'll find a way.
That I'm able to do anything I set my mind to.
I've never felt like more things are possible than right now.
In the right shoes, anything's possible.
DSW, countless shoes at brag-worthy prices. Imagine the possibilities.
Ever start a new supplement and wonder, is this really working? You're not alone. Most supplements aren't easily absorbed, which means your body might not be getting the nutrients it needs. Symbiotica takes a different approach, with formulas designed for maximum absorption. Favorites, like their liposomal vitamin C, support a strong immune system and boost natural collagen production. And their newest standout, liquid colostrum, is essential for a healthy gut, packed with nutrients that soothe and restore the gut lining. Symbiotica's clean, bioavailable supplements help your body actually use what you take, delivering real results. And with a monthly subscription, it's easy to stay consistent. Symbiotica makes wellness simple. Ready to feel a difference? Go to Symbiotica.com and use code START for 20% off. That's CYMBIOTIKA.com, code START.
So what you just laid out there is really interesting, because so many people kind of get really uneasy about the idea of defunding the police, and they get really shaky when they hear people say things like abolition. And I know that, like, when I think about someone like the abolitionist Mariam Kaba, she says oftentimes that defund is the floor. Like, that's just such a basic thing to ask or demand rather, when you're looking at these hyperinflated police budgets. So can you talk a little bit more about how your work would lend itself towards a more abolitionist vision if people had the resources they need, if they were trying to build a world where everyone had abundance and was able to thrive as you described? How could that make this idea of the necessity of the police and policing as we know it more obsolete?
One of the things I say, because, right, so one part of the backlash to defund, right, was this: our communities are so dangerous, we need more cops. Our communities are so dangerous, we need more cops, right? And they bang the drum and bang the drum and bang the drum. And we're eating it up hook, line, and sinker because we all want to feel safe. But as my friend Andrea Ritchie says, how can you feel safe? We're on a spinning rock in the middle of we don't know what. So people were talking about property crime, right? Or people are talking about cars being bipped, or people are talking about, the whole narrative, which I hope maybe someone at PushBlack can do the investigative journalism to why Target is lying about the shoplifting thing. Like, what do they get in insurance? But whenever somebody like spits that noise at me, right? Or somebody really has been robbed, because it does happen, I say to them, do you enjoy having a roof over your head? The answer is, of course, yes. Do you enjoy having clothes on your back? The answer is, of course, yes. Do you have kids? Yeah. In the winter, do you want your child to have a jacket to put on before they go outside? Yes. Do you need to eat at least once a day? So I need to eat 3 times a day. Right up. So do they. Right? So do they. Those things that we take for granted, those of us that get paychecks or have rich parents or whoever the hell you're doing it, those things that we take for granted, everybody walking this planet needs. And we live in a country that makes that impossible for large percentages of our population, particularly if they're Black, brown, or indigenous. So if you push people out of the above ground economy and you funnel them into the underground economy, right, people are going to do what they got to do to survive. That does not mean abolition isn't about personal accountability. It does not mean that we say it's okay to be violent, though I don't think property crime is violent. I'll just say that right now. I think that starving people and not giving people shelter is violent. But you can't be mad, really. You can be irritated maybe that your insurance has to replace your TV, but you can't really be mad that somebody took your TV to sell it to feed their child. So public safety would actually look like something like guaranteed basic income. Or guaranteed housing, right? Like, it should be a crime in this country for children to sleep outside. That should be what we're angry about. And that's what we should be demanding money gets taken away from police and put into. We've got cops in Oakland that are walking around making $600,000+ a year. Come on now. And we're in a $90+ million deficit just in year one because we give all this money to the police, right? And so I think, yes, that because so many people have been bombarded with the propaganda that we've gotten post-defund, that yes, when you say defund, they're like, oh, that's why there's so much crime. But when you sit and you actually talk to them and explain to them, nah, there's so much crime because we keep funneling all of our money into a system that does not work, right? As opposed to the things that would stop people from needing to run up in your house and take your TV. Getting to the root cause, interrupting the cycle, right? That's all defund is about, is getting resources to the things that are actually going to keep you safe.
So can you give us a rundown of some of those services you mentioned earlier that y'all provide? Just kind of explain what they are and how they're intervening.
First, I have to shout out the team, right? I have the distinct honor of getting to be the face of this organization. It is not me. Right? I have a dedicated, passionate, committed team, a lot of folks that were doing this, me included, before you got a paycheck to do this work, which now seems to be the assumption that you should not just get a paycheck, but a big one. Again, that's another segment. Before we formalized our model, I probably about 10 years before we formalized our model, skinny jeaned, not melanated people were running around Oakland telling people to not call the police ever and shaming Black people who did. And our response to them was, well, are you coming when somebody shoots somebody in the face in front of my 70-year-old neighbor's house? Are you coming when the single mom with 6 kids and 7 jobs who can't pay her bills is screaming in broad daylight on the corner? Are you coming when so-and-so ODs because they're burying their trauma with substance? Oh, no, then shut up, right? But then we had to look inward. Like, well, are we coming? Can we come? If we're telling people that this isn't the way, then isn't it on us as organizers to figure out what the way is, right? And the truth is that this is what we've been doing. I'll just talk about Black people because that's my expertise because I'm Black. We've never relied on the state. Our ancestors weren't calling NASA and asking him to call the doctor because the baby was sick. Our ancestors weren't calling, whoever to come deal with the trauma that's being expressed through violence in terms of domestic violence or interpersonal violence in our households. We weren't calling the man to come deal with the kid that maybe, was impacted by whatever and is cutting up. We just weren't doing that. We have always had our own ideologies, methodologies. Our ancestral right to our lineage is taking care of ourselves. And so a lot of the stuff that we do is really rooted on that. And so people started calling us to respond. The very first call that we got 10 years before we launched Mental Health First, which is our first alternatives program, it was to a domestic violence situation with a trans couple. And they were like, we can't call the police. They're going to kill him. And there's violence. Can you come? And we did. And that turned out all right, thank God. But then we had to, and there's expertise, different sets of expertise in the team. And so we knew then that we had to really get serious about it. And Asantwa just happens to be a registered nurse who spent 10 years of her career at the intersection of mental health, Black bodies, and these institutions that our people get carted off to. And so she, some doctors, some nurses, some social workers, and impacted people, because we don't believe that just because you have letters behind your name means that you're an expert, and built Mental Health First, which is our non-carceral response to mental health, to interpersonal violence, domestic violence, and to substance abuse. And we launched it in Sacramento first in 2020, and then Oakland, and folks know that that's also when COVID hit. So at first we had a dispatch model that we had to rein into the phone to protect everybody. And that had been going strong for over 3 years. I paused it because we believe we have to cull data. We have to learn. We have to tweak, because nothing that we don't know how to do this, right? We're learning, right? We're remembering how to do it. And we're relaunching in August. And we run Friday through Sundays, because that's, believe it or not, when there's no other resources available. We do not work with the police at all. We do not do forced treatment. We're never going to drag somebody to the hospital. Now, sometimes people want longer-term care, and so we send advocates with them, because the medical industrial complex kills as many of us as the carceral industrial complex does. We understand that a lot of our folks use substances to mitigate the trauma of the violence of white supremacy. So every single Monday, we open our doors and we sit out chairs and we do the NADA protocol. For folks that don't know what the NADA protocol is, Baba Matula Shakur and the Young Lords developed it in a hospital in New York, right? And it's 5 points on your ears that deal with withdrawal, cravings, PTSD, anxiety, right? And so why is this a public safety strategy? Because the brothers that are across the street in the housing projects come over, literally, and get needles in their ear. And they're talking about, hey, man, I can sleep. Hey, man, I'm less antsy. Hey, man, I'm less edgy. Medical crisis, right? Our people get way too sick and die of totally curable, totally preventable diseases. Why? Because they don't trust the MIC, the medical industrial complex, for righteous reasons. We've got holistic practitioners. This is what I mean by healing justice as an organizing strategy. They build relationships with these practitioners. We do Chinese medicine. We do telehealth. They can come and get their acupuncture, their body work, their foot soaks, food consultations. And then if they need longer-term care, we have relationships with traditional Western medicine who are values aligned. So as far as I'm concerned, and what I know is we're preventing hospital visits. We're interrupting diseases and death, right? That this system is perfectly happy to let our people get sick and die from. We've got a model to respond to interpersonal violence and domestic violence. I'm a survivor of domestic violence and the state's intervention into that violence. I got my butt kicked and I went to jail, which is really common for Black women. There's so many of us sitting in prison, right, for defending ourselves, for protecting ourselves. And part of how we get there is because we won't call the police, because we know if the police come, they're going to kill him, kill us, right? Everything's going to get worse. So we suffer in silence until we can't anymore. So those are a few examples of the services that we provide that are informed by community and run by community.
Yeah, shout out to Survived and Punished. We've done some work with them before in terms of highlighting those most marginalized folks intracommunally who are impacted by gender-based violence and so on and so forth, things like that. So I really appreciate you lifting that up. I also want to kind of get a little bit deeper into these myths and misconceptions. So if we're thinking about a lot of the different aspects of what you shared. If safety doesn't have to involve the police, then what should it look like?
I'm going to try to say this in a little bit of a different way, right? Because really it's the same mantra. Safety should look like food. Safety should look like housing. Safety should look like clothing. Safety should look like culturally relevant educational systems. Safety should look like the abolishment of Child Protective Services, who does not protect anybody. Safety should look like interrupting the root causes of trauma and trauma once it's happened, right? Safety should look like the decriminalization and destigmatization of mental health crisis, right? Safety should look like harm reduction instead of the criminalization for folks that are learning or trying to unlearn using substances to drown their trauma. And this is where I get in trouble by other abolitionists, and that's okay, because if we're not having real conversations with our people, the people aren't coming along. So a lot of times when our people who are living in places where there are high levels of violence say to an abolitionist, say, well, what about so-and-so who murdered 6 people on my block? And the abolitionists will go, well, we don't have to talk about that right now. We don't have to deal with the things that are the hardest in the moment. Yes, we do. We have to deal with that right now because that's what our people want to know right now, right? And that's not my area of expertise, but I know brothers and sisters, let me be real clear. I know people that are working on those models, and not everybody gets to come. And there are some people that do need timeouts. Now, do those timeouts need to look like dungeons where they're given, crap food and tortured and put in solitary? No. But not everybody just gets to mingle in our community, because the reality is white supremacy has done damage. And there are some of us that are just really, really damaged, and some of those folks may not get undamaged this lifetime, right? And that's the piece of the conversation that we're not having. And if we're not having it, then we're not being real. We're just not.
That's real. That's real. I think that you're talking about abolition in a way that I find approachable for a lot of people, because you're not leaning too much on the speculative aspect. You're talking about reality here and now in a way that is very important for people who are trying to really digest a lot of the bigger concepts that you're sharing.
And let me be clear, if anybody looks at you in the face and says they know how this is going to go and this is exactly what we should do, and here's that, they are lying to you, and get as far away from that person as fast as you can, because they're full of it and probably full of themselves. None of us know. What we know is that this ain't working, right? And that when we do these small models over here and we test this stuff out, it works better. And we deserve the room to fail. This system has been failing for hundreds of years, and
Right.
they keep getting more passes or more money, right? It's our turn.
I love that. I love that framing. So how do you then, just like you're having these conversations with people, how do you overcome that skepticism?
I invite them to the people's house. I tell them to not believe me, to go fact check. I say, Google this sentence: do more police make communities safer? Just go Google it. Do your own reading. Trust the people at Harvard and Brennan and Brown and all them white institutions, that are going to tell you what my black ass just said. That actually the research shows, not so much. Or I appeal to people's logic. Like I said, where are all the cops in the black and brown communities? Where is all the crime in the black and brown communities? 2 + 2 = what? Right? And people have their own right? Or doing the, debunking the myths. I just tell people, like, come rock with us for one weekend. Come see. Or who in your family, because we all got at least one. I personally don't believe that there's a single black person walking around in this country upright that is not impacted by mental health crisis. You can't be. You can't be. Even if you've assimilated, right? Like, that's another form of, you're not doing okay. Who in your family have you seen the state help in this crisis? If they look like us, no.
Right. So what are some of the top misconceptions then regarding the work that you and things that you hear that are wrong about what people would think that you're doing?
I'd say the biggest one, Cap Brooks, and I love just so y'all know, the reason why Oakland is on the top 10 most violent cities every year is my fault. I have conferences with the criminals every year. It's amazing the things that come out of people's mouth. But that abolitionists, or folks like me, they want to get rid of all the police tomorrow. In my dream world, and if we had all of the systems in place and we could just go like that, yes, I'm a rational, reasonable person. Remember all the people I just said need to sit down for a minute? I also said I don't have the system to deal with them yet. We need to be building it, right? So that's one. Two is a more lightweight version of that criminals conference, but it is that we just believe there's just no accountability and everybody should just be able to do, whatever they want and we don't care. Though I do live by the phrase free them all and let the people sort them out, because I think we're capable of doing that. I think the other misconception is if we go towards abolition, the criminals will just run wild. And just to be clear, when people are saying this, when they say criminals, they're talking about us. People are like it. The black people will run wild if there's not cops, right? That people really believe that cops keep us safe. And they are married to that belief that these people with badges and guns, these people rolling with military grade weapons in their cars through your neighborhood, that is safety. Because we have this thing in this country called propaganda, which tells you that the cops are the folks that get the kittens out of the trees and walk the old ladies across the street and catch the bad guys. Do you know that the average solve rate, I mean, you probably know, William, but your listeners, the average solve rate for almost any police department in this country is between 4 to 6%. So that means that 94 to 96% of the crime that you think they're solving goes unsolved. Forever and always, amen. Right, that prisons keep us safe. Do you know that between 96 and 98% of everybody who goes to prison comes home? But they come home with no resources, no supports. They've gone to the most violent institutions in the world, which is left them no choice but to become more violent. And then they get spit back in our communities, and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe they committed crime again. Right? So there's all of these illusions that the state intentionally continues to weave through the media, through television. I'll never forget, my daughter's almost 20 now, but I'll never forget for the after school program, and I rolled up to get her, and she had a cop sticker on her shirt. I lost my mind, right? Because they come into our schools. It's bananas. But the state is very invested in creating the conditions that create the conditions in our community, and then telling you that the only way out of those conditions is through the very apparatus that created the conditions in the first place. You see what I did there?
Coming up next.
What's a word you'd use to describe the future of safety?
Abolition.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you. Ooh. Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
Ready to level up? Chumba Casino is your playbook to fun. It's free to play with no purchase necessary. Enjoy hundreds of online social games like blackjack, slots, and solitaire. Anytime, anywhere with fresh releases every week. Whether you're at home or on the go, let Chumba Casino bring the excitement to you. Plus, get free daily login bonuses and a free welcome bonus. Join now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Play Chumba Casino today. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. T&Cs apply.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
I would love it if you could really speak to our listeners about what it is that we have to lose if we don't start thinking about alternatives, if we don't start trying to transform the way we imagine public safety, if we just remain invested in police. What's at risk for us as Black people in this country if we don't change?
Our lives. Police in this country murder upwards of 1,300 people a year. We hear the names of 5, maybe 7, perhaps, right? And that's just to murder. That's not all the people that are raped, all of the folks that are wrongfully incarcerated, the mental and emotional damage from being racially profiled, right? There's whole studies about what it does to Black folks, and I'm talking about Black men right now, that get ripped out of their car and sat in a corner for everybody to drive by, right? And see them being treated as if they've already done something, the psychological impact of that. What's at cost is everything. Is our sanity, our liberation, our ability to materially come up, to change our communities, to end substance utilization, to have thriving families, to have families that get to stay together, like all of that stuff. I mean, we're already in hell, right? And we keep asking this question, and I think we have for a long time, can things get worse? Well, hi, America, 2025. And so I would say that the stakes right now are even higher. That if we don't figure out how to be what is needed to each other, if we don't stop asking the oppressor to solve the problems that the oppressor created for us, if we don't stop waiting for the system that benefits from our conditions to make it better, we're in even more trouble than we were before.
So testify for me a little bit. Personally speaking, can you think of a story or an example through your organization where you could really see, if not immediately, maybe in the short time after something would have occurred, what a big difference was made, as opposed to if people had just called the police and had, some officers show up to intervene?
So we had a shooting at Juneteenth at our lake a couple of years ago, and we opened up our phone lines because that whole thing about interrupting trauma, right when it happens, so it doesn't fester. And a father called with his kid that had been at the lake and witnessed the shooting because he wanted help in real time to process the trauma. That brought tears to my eye, right? And these are street trauma-affiliated dudes, right, that probably have learned to express their trauma through violence and probably have it written down somewhere that that's what they've done, that are getting needles in their ear and talking about they're sleeping without having to drink a fifth of whatever a night. There's the bars that call us when their patrons are too drunk so that we can go and help them find. There's a woman that she couldn't remember what hotel she was staying in. And so one of our volunteers, because she was so intoxicated, one of our volunteers went and just walked with her downtown until they found a hotel. Right? Stuff like that, where we know, had the cops been called, we know from the data where it could have gone, and it didn't have to. And that's, to me, how we do it, is little bit by little bit, normalizing. Like, that's normal. That bar, they call us now. Great.
Perfect. So we want to play a little bit of a game. I hope that you are into games. What we have here on Don't Cop Out is a game called 60 Seconds with a Safety Expert. And so what we're doing here is I'm going to ask you a series of rapid fire questions. And your job is to keep your answers short and sweet, and ideally just a word or sentence each. We really want our listeners to be able to walk away with a clear understanding and a gem that they can have to really kind of conceptualize whatever information you're sharing. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, so keep it at just a word or a short sentence. What's your name?
Cat Brooks.
What do you do?
I fight the police.
What's one myth about community safety that you want to shut down?
More cops make us more safe.
What's a safer way to respond to conflict besides calling the cops?
Trained volunteers from the community.
Who actually benefits from the current policing system?
Police and the wealthy.
What does safety mean to you personally?
Freedom.
What does a successful community response look like in 3 words?
Local, relevant, empowered.
What's at stake if we don't invest in police alternatives?
Everything.
What's one resource everyone listening should know about?
Antipoliceterrorproject.org.
What's one action listeners can take today to support police alternatives?
Find a vetted organization you trust and donate.
What's a question we should all be asking more often?
Do police keep us safe?
Finish this sentence. We don't need police when we have blank.
Quality schools.
What's a word you'd use to describe the future of safety?
Abolition.
What do you say to someone who's afraid of change?
Breathe.
That's great. That's great. You killed it. So I think that really helps people take in a lot of the information when they can get those really quick answers and hear it broken down that way. So we really appreciate you doing that. So if we're moving on to kind of, you said, hey, look at USA in 2025. And I wanted to take that opportunity because of the framing of this current moment that we can get from that. These are some really disturbing times. There's a lot of different aspects of how everything you've shared about, everything you've spoken about thus far could contribute to a lot of the elements of what's making these times really scary. I mean, this is a growing police state that we're seeing under this administration. We're becoming even increasingly surveilled, and there's a lot of really, really strong, bolstered, empowered state violence in every direction. So what does it mean for you to be doing this work in the current political moment?
So I'm just going to say that for my reality is that fascism is not coming. It's here. My name and my org's name is on a list. They are working their way up to deporting all of us, or jailing all of us, or killing all of us. People are reacting right now to the headlines. And what I mean by that is, oh, they're going to cut the Department of Education, right? Oh, that's horrible. Oh, they're cutting, but oh, that's horrible. But what people aren't necessarily thinking about is what that means in 3 months, what that means in 6 months, what that means in 12 months. So this big nasty bill that they just passed, right, that's going to, people say there's still a fight left to be had in Congress. Yeah, okay, we'll see. They're waiting to the midterms to actually implement it because they're not stupid. 3 months past the midterms, imagine your lowest income community in your city, 3 months without medical care or food stamps. Now imagine that community 6 months out without medical care or food stamps. Let's do a year. So if you live in anywhere USA that's a bloodbath right now, or you can convince us a bloodbath right now, what I promise you is that in a year it's going to be a bloodbath. So the urgency of alternatives, the urgency of mutual aid, the urgency of helping our people understand why this system doesn't work is that much more critical. We're a Black-led organization at APTP, and we're multi-generational, multiracial. We've gotten really clear that right now what's needed from us is for all of our work to be done through a Black lens. All of it, right? To be explicit and unapologetic about that, because we think it's bad now, right? We think it's bad now. And so it means a shifting of the work. It means assessing who can take what risk. And it means ask you, and I told my team, each of you need to wake up every single day and ask yourself, what level of risk are you willing to take? And be honest with yourself, and don't answer that question based on shame or, right? Like, are you cool with them kicking in your door and dragging you outside of your house? Because we're in the time period now where that could happen. Are you cool with being disappeared, because you're at a protest? Are you right? Or are you just cool with, them maybe not paying so much attention, right? Because then you figure out where in this thing you fit. And so I'm asking my team that, but everybody listening should be asking. You should be asking yourself that too. But what I will tell you is that you have to do something. Everybody has to do something. Your days of sitting on the sideline and say, yeah, they got it, or what, that's over. Every single one of us. And you ain't got to do it like Cat Brooks does it. Tear gas tastes like crap. I don't recommend it. Right? But we need communicators. We need journalists. We need people to drive the babies. We need people to write the stories. We need people to grow food. We need, right? Like, all of that stuff needs to be happening right now, and you need to figure out where you get in to fit in. And so for me, I decided I dead organizers are not helpful. So I've never romanticized that. Incarcerated organizers, well, that's not true. Good movement on the inside, right? With no movement on the outside, without movement on the inside. Howsoever, I like it on this side of the walls. That said, I made a decision a long time ago that if it was going to move things forward, that was my life was an okay thing to not okay, but right, like it was. If I got to, okay, that's my decision. But we don't need everybody to make that decision, right? And so in this moment, for me personally, when I'm planning out my radio show and I know that I'm gonna spend the hour talking about that orange dude, I know that I'm making a decision. You know what I mean? When I think about resources or preserving my team's energy because we got ways to go, I'm making a decision. It's impacted the way I think about security for everybody on the team. I mean, it's so much. I'm going on and on because it's so much. The world has turned on its access. And, like I had an organizer friend of mine who folks would know, but I'm not going to say her name. She's probably sick of hearing me refer to her because I do it in almost every interview right now. But she's seasoned vet, revolutionary, gangster chick, was texting me when the Orange Dude, took power. And the last text she sent me was the last one. She said, "Sis, is it gonna be bad?" And I could feel the weight in what she was asking me. And I felt the weight of my responsibility to tell her the truth. And I said, yes, it's going to be bad, but this is what we trained for.
Amazing. That's really heavy, but it's something that we have to sit with. That's just the reality. I think that it helps kind of speak to one of the next points that I wanted to get into with you is, the heaviness and the threat against this work. That's one thing, right? But it's also hard to fund this type of work. It's hard to find resources for this type of work to build a world where more people have resources, right? So what does it mean to be doing it at a time as well where there's so many cutbacks, where there's so many layoffs? Does this work feel stable for you?
This work wasn't supposed to feel financially stable to anyone ever. That's the problem. The celebritization and monetization of our movement is part of the problem right now. Listen, and I actually think that people do deserve a living wage to do this work, right? I think that we should make more than the police, and it is not our right, right? I don't do this work because I make whatever X amount I make. I was doing this work before I got a paycheck, and when Trump makes sure that there's not a single solitary penny left to fund this work, I'll be doing this work still. Because I love my people, and I believe that we will win, and it's just what we're supposed to do, period. So is it hard right now? My biggest concern is actually for my team. Even when I hired my team, and this was, back when, so the money came in, I said, I promise you 2 years of work. And that's it. I can't promise you past that. I will do everything in my power to continue to pay you a living wage and make sure you got 401k and health benefits. I don't even know what 401k is going to mean in 3 years. Right? I'm doing my best, but the work doesn't stop because the money, right? I think that this is going to be a very difficult wake-up call. I don't do this work so I get paid. I used to say I have a 9 to 5, and then this was my 5 to 9. I am lucky. I'm so blessed that I get to do this every day and feed my family. But whether or not I can or not doesn't dictate what happens tomorrow.
That's one of the more unique answers I've heard when we've been talking about this with different people. So speaking of your team, can you tell us maybe a recent victory then that your team has had that didn't make headlines that people wouldn't know about otherwise?
I can. Shout out to Refilway, our director of organizing. There's a university, used to be Mills College, it was a women's college, and a former OPD captain and the Northeastern people decided that they wanted a private police force on that university campus, but they wouldn't be limited to the university campus. They would be patrolling all of East Oakland, which came all the way down, because they can't draw maps apparently, came all the way down basically into the middle of town. And when I tell you that the team jumped into action and organized the neighbors, and that they had the people that wanted the private police force put out this BS survey, the people created a different survey which showed that the people actually wanted, grocery stores and not cops. And that whole thing, it went away. It went away because it was quick, it was strategic, it was tactical, it was like surgical. The way that the organizers went in there, like, yeah, nah. And that was dope.
Amazing. I'm glad to hear that. So one of the things too I wanted to touch on while we're still talking about the current moment we're in, a lot of times in the headlines you hear this phrase "soft on crime," or you hear this kind of pro-crime framing that you were talking about, people try to paint onto you and your organization. What's a message you would have to leaders or potential supporters who might fear backlash for pursuing police alternatives or supporting an organization like yours, what would you say to them?
Grow a pair. The Democrats, you want to know why Trump is in office? Because of that. Because y'all was taking knees and taking pictures of y'all on knees and talking about how much Black Lives Matter. And the time you thought that your voting base swung the other way, so did you. So, you want to know whose fault it is? It's your fault. I mean, we can also talk about the genocide in Palestine. And, right, it started, come on. I was going off on our city council the other day, and I was like, you either are not reading or you're being willfully ignorant. It's one of the two, and both are unacceptable.
Appreciate you saying that very bluntly for listeners. I mean, it's a lot of people that escape blame. I'll say it like that. There's a lot of people with a lot of power that escape blame in that way. Yeah. So if we're thinking about the future, again, I want to get into a little bit more of the kind of speculative aspects of this. In an ideal world, what would the future your work contributes to look like? What would that scene be for me, if you can describe it?
I mean, I think for me the biggest thing, because I feel like I've sort of described, what I think the world looks like in terms of what's resourced and what's not, and that I don't think it's utopia. I just think it's better. But what I say a lot is that it success looks like what we do becoming rational, and the radical being all this other garbage that's happening now, right? That it becomes absurd to call the police because someone's having a mental health crisis, right? That it's criminal to take someone to jail after you help them survive an overdose. That to me is that we get off this rat wheel of bananas. Like, it's just bananas, I mean, they say in the rooms in program, right, the definition of insanity, right? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'm like, okay, y'all, like, it looks like us doing something different and getting different results.
Thank you. If we're telling our listeners, for folks who are tapped in right now and they feel inspired, a way that they can get involved, what can they do if they're in the Bay Area, or what can they do if they're outside of California in some other part of the country? What can they do to create this sort of work in their communities or support it in the community where you're at?
So if you're in the Bay, holla at us, antipoliceterrorproject.org or Anti-Police Terror Project on the socials. If we're not the org for you, we'll put you in touch with the vetted organizations that are doing the work, right? Because there's a lot of folks that say they're doing the work that ain't doing the work, that are chasing that check, because there's also money to do this work. And if you're not in the Bay Area, whoever the police are the most mad at in your community, go holla at them, because they're probably doing it right.
That is a testament to a lot of times who's being really effective. I mean, you have a point there. Kat, it's been amazing.
Thank you.
We want to thank you for coming on. We're so lucky to have people like you in the community, and the work that the Anti-Police Terror Project is doing is just really phenomenal to hear about. It's greatly appreciated because, like you said, you're not doing it just with some really grand source of funding or some huge reward that you're getting. And it sounds like oftentimes what you're getting is punished for doing the work more than anything.
They try.
So
They
thank
try.
you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it, that just this offering that you've given to listeners for what else could be possible. And we're wishing you well. And for everyone that's listening, we'll catch you on the next episode of Don't Cop Out. With production support from Zane Murdoch and Leslie Taylor Grover, Don't Cop Out is produced by Sydney Smith, Darren Wallace, and Lynn Webb, who also edits the show. Our executive producers are Lily Workman and me, your host, William C. Anderson. Don't Cop Out is a product of PushBlack, the country's largest nonprofit black media company. You help make PushBlack possible with your donations at www.pushblack.us/don'tcopout. Most people give $5 or $10 a month, but every contribution helps and is greatly appreciated. Thank you for supporting our work.